There's an instance when Virat Kohli hit two impossible sixes against Pakistan. When asked about the shots, he said, I don't know how it happened.
So nothing, not even the field, doesn't matter, you have to go
I didn't
for a
look at
six.
anything.
You didn't look at anything.
Nothing.
You left a 15-year medical career and became a founder of a meditation-based startup. Why?
Western medicine doesn't even come close to achieving what we call as health. For more than 15 years, I studied disease at the cellular level as a pathologist. In medical school, we are taught that the cell is the building block of life, but 99.99% of an atom is energy. So we are not just cellular beings to be treated at a cellular level. We are energetic beings first.
Now that we know the brain is so powerful, is that what manifestation is?
And I once wrote, I will earn 1.5 lakh every month on a piece of paper. And suddenly, I was referred for a job in a Caribbean medical school. Interview went so well. Then I asked, what's the remuneration? And they said, to my astonishment, 1.5 lakh. And then I asked, if it is 1.5 lakh a month, how soon could I join? And then they just corrected me. It's not 1.5 lakh a month, it's 1.5 lakh a week.
Dr. S. Kokila, Professor of Pathology, neuroscience-based meditation expert, and entrepreneur.
You left a 15-year medical career and became a founder of a meditation-based startup. Why?
So, after more than 15 years in medical profession, especially studying disease at the cellular level as a pathologist, I came to a realization that yes, Western medicine is amazing. It saves lives every day through surgeries, through emergency care, and so on. But when we talk about achieving true health, not just absence of disease, but the state of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, Western medicine doesn't even come close to achieving what we call as health. In fact, ancient Indian form of medicine focused on achieving health through the meditation, yoga, Ayurveda, and it did this by regulating the mind, body, nervous system, building immunity, and preventing disease even before the symptoms even appeared. Somewhere along the way, we disconnected from our roots. We shifted from natural healing and became more influenced by the Western system of medicine, which was a pharmaceutical centered model of care. That shift gradually conditioned us to believe that healing primarily comes from outside, such as from a pill, from a procedure, or from some form of intervention. But the truth is, medically speaking, most medicines support the body, but the actual healing is done by the body itself. The human body and mind is extraordinarily intelligent. In medical school, we are taught that we are made up of cells. We are taught that the cell is the building block of life. And from that, our medical education starts. For more than 15 years, I studied disease at the cellular level as a pathologist. Even the drugs work at the cellular level. So the drugs, either they work at the level of the cell membrane or at the nucleus or at the cytoplasm of the cell. But here is where things get interesting. Even when you look at a cell, so the cells are made up of atoms, and an atom at the quantum level is made up of protons, neutrons, and electrons. So we know that the protons and neutrons are situated in the center of an atom. Electrons are orbiting the nucleus. Now these protons, neutrons, and electrons comprise just 0.01% of an atom, and more than 99% is empty space. But what we once called emptiness, physics now calls it as energy. So 99.99% of an atom is energy. So we are not just cellular beings to be treated at a cellular level. We are energetic beings first. And at the quantum level, the protons, the neutrons, electrons, they are not still. They are constantly oscillating, spinning, and vibrating. This vibration is not a random chaos. It is organized, it is governed by physical laws. The human body is therefore a living system of organized vibrations. Now, the vibrations of the atom is closely related to our emotions. To simplify our emotions or the emotional state, we are either in a stressful emotional state or we are in a happy emotional state. Stressful emotional states such as fear, anger, worry causes the brain to release neurochemicals. These neurochemicals are cortisol, noradrenaline, adrenaline, and together they cause inflammation in the body. They reduce digestion, they decrease immunity and healing, whereas elevated emotional states such as calm, joy, gratitude, love cause the brain to release the neurochemicals of dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, endorphins, GABA. All of these are feel good neurochemicals. These neurochemicals reduce inflammation, support and enhance immunity. They are important for tissue repair and neuroplasticity. So you see how emotions can affect the health of a body. Emotions are not just feelings. They lead to neurochemical release, and these neurochemicals affect the cellular environment that results in expression of either health or disease. If you've ever noticed, when we experience some kind of negative emotion, when we feel low, we are in low energy states, we will eventually attract some kind of disease. I have spoken to thousands of cancer patients, and everyone shares one common thing, that is their negative emotional state. Many have had years of guilt, fear, or shame. This created the disease at the cellular level. And I have also observed people who are happy and positive and grateful are always in the best of health. When something really good happens, suddenly your energy is high, the brain releases the feel good neurochemicals. So, if we are able to stay in this feel good state, the nervous system resets to a state of vibrant health, and therefore, if we are constantly in a happy state, we inadvertently attract vibrant health. We can literally laugh off any disease. And that is the basis of laughter therapy and how effective it is. If you can be happy without any reason and your vibration becomes so high, the brain releases neurochemicals that make you feel so good that the nervous system feels safe and the body has no choice but to heal. Meditation essentially trains us to access the state of happiness without waiting for an external event to make us happy. We learn to generate calm, contentment, and inner stability from within.
To make such a big leap, there has to be major events that must have happened in your life. Could we just delve a little bit into that?
Yes, you are right. So we always take decisions from our life experiences. And in my case, I have 3 very memorable experiences. The first is when my younger son, he was around 3 years of age, he was speaking less than other children his age. So I took him to the pediatrician, and he was one of the best pediatricians, and he diagnosed my son with speech delay. So I was really overwhelmed to learn this, and to help him speak, I started researching, learning more about how to stimulate the brain. I learned about theta healing, right brain, left brain. I started to use a lot of techniques that I learned to help my son speak. And at the same time, I was also doing meditation. To my surprise, after doing the techniques and I was myself meditation, so I started learning a lot of techniques, and first I used them on my own son. At the same time, I was doing meditation on and off previously, but I again restarted doing that meditation and I started using those techniques which I learned on my son. And you will not believe, within 1 year, he started speaking. He was speaking not just one language, but 2 languages fluently. By 4 years of age, children can name lion, tiger, and other animals. But at 4 years, he was able to name species. He could name individual species of sharks and crabs. He could look at a picture and correctly name the species of the animal. And as of today, just by looking at a picture, he can correctly identify more than 80 species of dinosaurs. Now, all this happened without any form of medications. This happened purely through his brain training and the meditation I was doing to keep calm. The brain is the most powerful tool we are born with, yet no one has taught us how to use it. Neuroscience shows that the brain is a prediction and learning machine. It constantly reshapes itself based on the inputs that it receives. So the 3 strongest inputs are visual, meaning what we see. The second is auditory, meaning what we hear. And the third is kinesthetic, what we feel and do. These inputs drive the neural connections through a process called neuroplasticity. When these inputs are repeated and they are meaningful, they can strengthen the brain networks. And through this, my son was able to start speaking. So that was one of the really eye-opening moments in my life. And another experience was when my elder son was giving his 10th board exams. Now, my elder son is not academically oriented, so neither did I ever force him to get marks, above 90% marks. I never forced him. But in his pre-boards, which was just 3 months before his exams, he scored 49%. So he got really stressed. And I told him, just keep studying. But before you sleep, listen to the audio I give you. So I made an audio in the delta frequency, which is the frequency of sleep, and I put the auto suggestion, you remember what you study. Answers come to you easily. You will do well in your 10th boards. And I gave it to him. He listened to it every single night. He asked me, how can this even help me? But then when the results came, he could not believe he got 80%. So this is the power of the mind and what can happen if we start using the brain's potential. So what I used here is the delta brainwave state to implant a new suggestion in his mind that he will do well in his exams. Now, how did this happen? So during sleep, especially in the deeper stages of sleep, the analytical mind, the thinking, critical part of the mind is turned off, while the part of the mind responsible for memory, for emotions and learning remains active. The mind does not go to sleep and turns off. Because of this, when the brain hears reassuring, positive statements during sleep, it does not analyze or argue with them. It simply stores them as the input, as the information and context. This context influences how the nervous system is set for the next day. In my son's case, repeatedly hearing messages like, you remember what you study, answers come to you easily, and you do well, gradually shifted his internal state. And this happened not in the conscious but a deep meditative state of sleep, which is the delta frequency. So he shifted from stress and self-doubt to calm and confidence. A calm nervous system improves attention, memory, recall, and learning efficiency. Over time, this change in the internal state affected how he studied, how he recalled information, and how he approached exams. The result was not sudden intelligence or some magical event, but a brain that was better regulated, more confident, and more receptive to learning. And that internal shift caused his measurable academic improvement. So the third experience was very profound for me. So I had infertility for nearly 10 years, and I had consulted one of the best infertility specialists in the country, who's also received one of the highest civilian honors by the government of India, the Padma Shri, for helping women with infertility. Now, she was such a nice doctor. She told me it was impossible for me to have a second child naturally. I had gotten so many tests and procedures under her guidance, and after all the procedures, she said I needed IVF. And without IVF, it was impossible for me to have a baby naturally. And even after IVF, the success rate was around 29%. So me and my husband discussed about this, and after a lot of thought, we decided, you know what, let us give a child who doesn't have parents a home and give a child all our love. So that's how we applied for adoption, and all the adoption process, the documentation, it went very smoothly. But we were not expecting the very long wait period, and months of waiting eventually became 2 years. And all this made me even more stressful. I had put on weight. So that's when, for the first time in my life, I turned to meditation. And I never even imagined what would be the effect of me deciding to start meditation. As I started with meditations, I visualized in my mind I'm playing with a baby, and I would meditate. I started to feel more calm, more centered. An unexpected thing happened. I met an old friend in a medical conference. She had become very lean and very fit, and I asked her how she became so fit, and she told me about a fitness platform called Squats. It is now called as Fitter. The founder is Jitendra Choksi, and she told me that they would create personalized nutrition and exercise plans for us. She encouraged me to join it. So, the very next day, I enrolled under a fitness coach named as Yash Kaushik. He guided me on my diet, on my exercise, and at the same time, I was already practicing meditation. And as I started following the nutrition and exercise plan, I started to feel more energetic. I became fitter. I lost a lot of weight. And within 3 months, I had become pregnant naturally. I was so surprised because I was not on a single medication at that time. You know, there is a saying, when we really want something, we don't get it. When we totally detach, disconnected from it, that's when we get it. In fact, when I was getting treatment for infertility, there was a time I was on 10 drugs, and still it didn't get cured. So I was so happy and surprised and had mixed emotions when I got pregnant naturally. And moreover, I'm a pathologist and I understand disease very well. I began to question what we have been taught in medical school. That's when I started to research more. I tried to understand more about the human body and its ability and capability to heal on its own if we create the healing environment. So my conclusion is that yes, the human body can heal if we create the right environment.
So this basically means that our brain has so much potential and we just do not know how to harness it?
Yes, our brain already has incredible potential. It has the ability to create, the ability to heal. It has the ability to have extraordinary memory, intuition, to create peak performance states. All of this is in fact built in. The issue is not lack of the ability, it is a lack of awareness. Most of us were never taught how to use the brain to its highest potential. And therefore, we are just operating in stress. We are in distraction and constant stimulation, what we call as the brain's beta state. Now, the brain operates in 5 different brain wave states. Each has a completely different level of intelligence, creativity, and healing ability. While we can use all 5 brainwave states to tap into our limitless potential, we use only one state, known as the beta state. Modern life has trapped us almost permanently in the beta state. In the beta state, the electrical activity of the brain is in the 13 to 30 Hz frequency. Beta is the brainwave states we are in from the moment we wake up to the moment we sleep, because we are thinking, analyzing, planning, and reacting to the external world. The beta state is essential, but only in short bursts. When the brain stays in beta for long periods, the cortisol or stress hormone rises. The nervous system stays activated, and this is the basis of stress and burnout. That's the real root cause of anxiety, stress, burnout. It's not weakness, not lack of motivation, it's not poor time management, but the brain being stuck in the beta state. When the brain calms down, something very remarkable happens. As thoughts begin to disappear, the focus begins to increase. When the nervous system relaxes through the breath, through stillness, or through rhythmic movement, a deep presence is felt and the brain shifts out of the beta state. The electrical activity slows and the alpha waves take over. As alpha waves increase, thoughts reduce, the inner dialogue becomes quiet, the physical body relaxes, awareness becomes more sharp. This is the paradox people don't expect. Less thinking creates more clarity and focus. In fact, the greatest of the minds that ever lived, whom we considered as geniuses, just spent more time in the alpha state. They functioned in the alpha brainwave state, while we are spending most of the time in the beta state. And alpha is a state that anyone can be trained to enter through meditation, through mindfulness, and through breathing practices. There's an instance when Virat Kohli hit 2 impossible sixes against Pakistan. Later, in an interview, when asked about the shots, he said, "I don't know how it happened. I was just a witness to what was happening. It was happening through me. That moment has a name. It is called the alpha state or the flow state. In the flow state, the mind becomes silent, thoughts just disappear, and intuition-based intelligence takes over the body. Action happens without conscious effort. The timing becomes perfect, and performance literally looks superhuman. This is the power of the subconscious mind guiding our life. And not just Virat Kohli, even Steve Jobs was known to operate in the alpha state. Steve Jobs had unconventional yet highly effective work habits, and one of this was called the 10-minute rule. Whenever he found himself stuck on a problem for more than 10 minutes, he would get up, step away from his desk, and take a walk. No laptop, no phone, just movement. And almost magically, new ideas showed up. What sounded like a quirky habit back then is now backed by science. A landmark study from Stanford University found that walking boosts creativity and problem solving by up to 60%. And here is the deeper reason. Walking naturally shifts your brain waves into the alpha state. In alpha state, the mind is relaxed, the nervous system is in a state of calm and ideas start to flow effortlessly. Walking often triggers the alpha or the flow state. When you are moving, you are in the presence of the moment and mentally free. In fact, even in history, it was seen that the most genius minds were simply spending more time in the alpha state. You know, it's fascinating when you look at some of the greatest minds in history. They didn't always get their best ideas while working hard or stressing. Take Mozart, for example. Many of his masterpieces actually came to him when he was out walking. He was relaxed, not forcing anything. That calm alpha state of the brain where you're relaxed but alert is often when creativity flows most naturally. Even Albert Einstein talked about this. He used to say some of his best ideas came while he was playing the violin. Music relaxed him. Music quietened the overthinking mind. Suddenly, insights would just appear. It wasn't always calculation and effort, it was just a calm awareness. And also, there's Newton. The insight of gravity didn't happen in a lab under pressure. It happened when Newton was resting under a tree, when the brain waves slow down into alpha or even theta. The brain starts making deep connections. And that's when Newton discovered gravity. He was just present in the moment. He observed the apple and he discovered gravity. So that's how breakthrough ideas emerge. And peak performance isn't always about pushing harder. It's about learning how to relax the mind in the right way so the inner genius potential can surface. The brain also has a theta brainwave state that happens when you're deeply relaxed, even more than alpha. This is a phase just before sleep. You can achieve this state during deep meditation or daydreaming. In this state, the analytical mind is so quiet and the subconscious mind becomes more receptive. This is the brainwave state in which visualization, emotional healing, learning, and creative thinking happen at the peak. Visualization in the theta state is so powerful, it isn't just imagination. The brain activates the similar neural circuits as a real experience. And this is why athletes, performers, and high achievers use visualization to rehearse their ideal scenario. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps is one of the most cited examples of visualization in elite performance psychology. He reportedly spent time every day mentally rehearsing his races along with the physical training. He would visualize every detail, the dive, the strokes, the turns, even potential problems like water filling his goggles. During the 2008 Beijing Olympics, mid-race, water started leaking into Michael Phelps' goggles, and by the final lap, he could barely see. Normally, that would completely disrupt a swimmer's timing, direction, and confidence. But Michael Phelps had done extensive mental visualization. He had repeatedly imagined races in detail, including worst case scenarios like an equipment failure. And because of that preparation, he already knew how many strokes it took him to reach the final. Instead of panicking, he simply counted his strokes and trusted his training. He ended up winning the gold medal and setting a world record, despite essentially swimming blind in the final stretch. The next brainwave state is delta. Delta is the deepest restorative state predominant during sleep. Now, this is the phase when the body undergoes maximum repair, rejuvenation, immune strengthening, and hormonal regulation. Healing and memory consolidation also happens during deep sleep. This is how efficient the delta state is. Now, interestingly, even though the conscious mind is minimal in this state, the brain doesn't completely shut off. Studies suggest certain sounds, emotions, tones, or repetitive cues can still be processed at a subconscious level even during sleep. And this is why practices like calming sleep audio, positive affirmations before sleep, or sleep talk can influence the mind. It can lead to emotional regulation. It can help reduce stress over time. The fifth brain waves that we can use are the gamma brain waves. Gamma are considered the brain's highest frequency and are associated with peak cognition, deep focus, heightened awareness, complex information processing, compassion, and moments of sudden insight develop during gamma. Neuroscience says gamma activity reflects different brain regions firing in synchrony, which allows faster processing, clearer perception, and what many people described as the genius state or an aha moment that they experienced. Meditation has been shown to increase gamma synchronization and gamma bursts. Historically, many ancient yogis, monks, and people who just meditate long hours describe states of heightened awareness, intuition, and insight because meditation increases the gamma brain waves. One of the most well known examples of studies in neuroscience is Matthew Ricard. He was a Buddhist monk who had participated in multiple brain studies. Researchers, including neuroscientist Richard Davidson's team at the University of Wisconsin, recorded very strong gamma synchronization in his brain during compassion based meditation. So, gamma activity is linked with heightened awareness, emotions, attention, and integration of different brain regions. What was striking is that along with the high gamma bursts, Matthew could consistently generate them because he was meditating. He has even been called the happiest man in the world, though he himself says happiness is a skill anyone can cultivate, and he had cultivated it through meditation. So, brain that is functioning in a more integrated, emotionally balanced, and happy state generates the gamma waves more consistently and more frequently. And this can be achieved through meditation.
Can you explain a bit more about stress? Because this is something everybody, almost everyone, is going through and is in need of desperate help.
Yes, stress is honestly one of the biggest silent struggles of today. Almost everyone is experiencing it at some level, but many don't fully understand what stress is and how deeply it affects them and their body. Stress isn't just feeling busy or having a lot to do. It's actually your body's survival response. When your brain senses danger, pressure, uncertainty, fear, or mental overload, that's when it activates the survival response. Now, this response is useful in short bursts. It helps you stay alert and handle challenges. But the problem today is that stress has become constant. Everyone is living in a background of stress, that it has become normal. And there is no in depth understanding of what constant stress does to the body. Imagine this for a moment. You're walking quietly in a forest, and suddenly you see a dangerous animal coming towards you. Instantly, your brain switches into the survival mode, and the nervous system directs you to run, to survive and stay alive. You don't sit there analyzing, planning, or philosophizing. You just run. Now, what's happening inside your body during the stress response or the survival response? Again, it's fascinating. Your brain releases the fight or flight hormones of survival, adrenaline and cortisol. And also, because of these hormones, the blood circulation changes. Now, all the blood starts flowing predominantly towards your arms and legs so you can move very fast. And that also means less blood is now flowing to the areas of the brain responsible for your higher thinking, for the higher intellectual functions. There is less blood flowing to the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain which is necessary for deep thinking and decision making. So, in survival response, your nervous system is just trying to keep you alive. Now, imagine you finally reach safety. The animal is lost and out of sight. What's the first thing you do? Usually, you let out a sigh, like this long exhale. And that long exhale is a signal to your brain, I am safe now. The slow breath activates the calm part of the nervous system, what we call as the parasympathetic nervous system. Once the body feels safe again, the blood flow gradually returns to the parts of the brain such as the cortex, the prefrontal lobe, where clarity, decision making, creativity, and higher intellectual functions happen. And that's when you can start thinking clearly again. So, the challenge today is many people are living as if that dangerous animal is constantly present because of modern life, the deadlines, the financial worries, the social pressures, the non stop digital stimulation, and the body keeps reacting as if it is in a constant state of survival and rarely gets that deep, safe signal. And that's why practices like slow breathing, meditation, and relaxation are so powerful. They recreate that long exhale moment of safety. These practices tell the nervous system to relax, allowing the brain to shift back into clarity, focus, and higher functions needed to perform at the peak, needed for peak brain performance. There is a reason people who work in corporate offices have so much stress. It is the environment itself. Most corporate workspaces are unconsciously designed to keep the brain in what we call a high beta state. Constant emails, notifications, deadlines, performance pressure, artificial lighting, back to back meetings. Now, the beta state is useful for short term alertness. It helps with analytical thinking, decision making, and task completion. But when the brain stays there all day without recovery, it shifts into what is known as high beta. That's when the stress hormone rises, creativity drops, and mental fatigue or burnout sets in. And here's something fascinating from neuroscience. Great ideas, innovation, intuition, and flow state rarely comes from a stressed brain. They emerge when the brain moves into the calm and slower alpha state. The alpha state is the state linked with relaxed alertness, creativity, insight, and peak performance. That is why many breakthrough ideas don't happen at your desk. They happen in the shower, on a walk, while listening to music, during meditation, or even just when you pause and breathe. For a workplace to achieve the maximum mental potential, there should be music, calm, and relaxation. Workspaces that include calming sensory environments, natural lighting, or soothing soundscapes, breaks for mental reset and reflection, mindfulness, or relaxation practices that show that the workers achieve flow states, calm, and creativity. When people work from flow rather than pressure, performance becomes sustainable, creativity improves, and well being naturally follows.
Now that we know the brain is so powerful, is that what manifestation is?
Manifestation is a modern Western term, but it has already been described in Indian scriptures and yogic philosophy. There is a beautiful word called sankalpa. It doesn't simply mean a wish, it means a deeply felt conscious intention aligned with your values, emotions, and inner purpose. So, when your sankalpa or intention is emotionally meaningful, actions naturally align with it and attract the desire into reality. Meditation plays a key role here in manifestation of your sankalpa. When you meditate, your thoughts reduce, stress hormones drop, and harmonious emotions develop. That calmer state of mind often helps people clarify their priorities, make better decisions, and stay consistent with their goals. So, from a practical perspective, this is where manifestation becomes real. I have a very interesting story about manifestation. I was so stressed in my job, and I once wrote, I will earn 1.5 lakh every month on a piece of paper. At that time, I wanted a job that pays me 1.5 lakh a month. And suddenly, I was referred for a job in a Caribbean medical school. So I attended the interview. The interview went so well, and they asked me to join in the interview call itself. And I asked more about the work culture. I asked what about the air tickets. They said it would be paid by the university. Then I asked, what about the accommodation? They said my stay and transport would both be covered by the university. Then I asked, what's the remuneration? And they said, to my astonishment, 1.5 lakh, which I had written on the paper few weeks ago. And then I asked them, if it is 1.5 lakh a month, how soon could I join? And then they just corrected me. It's not 1.5 lakh a month, it's 1.5 lakh a week. And that really surprised me, because what I had intended, my sankalpa, I got so much more than what I had envisioned and visualized.
Does that mean the brain can directly affect the amount of money that one can attract in one's life?
So, I always like to explain money in a slightly different way. Money is really in a state of circulation. It flows where there is trust, where there is creativity, and where genuine value is being exchanged. And interestingly, your inner state actually affects how you show up in that flow. If you're calm, confident, and grounded, you think differently, communicate differently, and make better decisions. But if you're stressed or fearful, the brain goes into survival mode, and then you don't take the necessary action. From a neuroscience perspective, when the brain is in a positive, relaxed state, focus improves, the emotional balance develops, the decision making becomes more clear, and mental resilience increases. You literally function better and become receptive to financial opportunities. And this is where meditation becomes so powerful. Meditation is a way of reducing the mental noise. It helps align your emotions, your thoughts, and your intentions, or as in the Indian wisdom, what we call sankalpa, a deeply aligned intention. A sankalpa is not just wishful thinking, but a clear inner commitment to achieve a goal, where the mind, heart, and action are in alignment. And when people reach that alignment, something interesting happens. They communicate better, they take smarter risks, they attract the right collaborations, they start noticing opportunities earlier. And most importantly, they stay consistent. That alone can change financial outcomes dramatically. There's also a subtle emotional shift that meditation creates, a sense of abundance, gratitude, and sufficiency, or what many traditions call an abundance mindset, a grounded feeling and an energy that you're capable, authentic, and compassionate. And people trust that energy. Clients trust it, teams trust it, and collaborators trust it. Trust is actually one of the biggest currencies in how money flows. So when people say meditation helped money come to me, what they usually mean is they became clearer, they showed up better, they built stronger relationships, they made wiser decisions, and they sustained effort without burnout. And that combination naturally would attract financial growth. So, meditation is about becoming the kind of person through whom value flows naturally. And when value flows, money usually follows. This reminds me of one of my friends whose business had been stuck for almost 2 years. He was working extremely hard, trying strategies, trying marketing, networking, but nothing really moved. The issue wasn't lack of effort, it was the constant stress, self doubt, and emotional fatigue that was silently affecting his decisions, communication, and confidence. So instead of focusing only on business tactics, we worked on healing and meditation, calming the nervous system, clearing the emotional and mental blocks through regular inner work. And slowly something shifted. He became calmer in conversations, more confident, and far more consistent. He stopped reacting from fear and started responding from faith, purpose, and clarity. And that's when the external results began to change. His conversations improved, referrals increased, and he started closing high ticket clients. Something that hadn't happened for nearly 2 years. Eventually, he crossed 1 crore in his business. Meditation doesn't magically create the money. What it does is transform the person running the business. When your mind is clear, emotions are stable, and intentions are aligned, your actions become sharper, your communication becomes more authentic, and opportunities naturally open up. So often, when you're trying to make money, the real breakthrough isn't outside, it's within. And once the shift happens within, results tend to follow.
How can we start with meditation in peak brain performance? And do you also help in these kind of meditations?
There are actually many types of meditations that we teach. And the best thing is, anyone can start, even if you're a complete beginner. Meditation for peak brain performance is really about gently training your brain over time to move from states of stress into states of calm, focus, and a higher cognition. What neuroscience calls as the alpha, theta, and gamma brainwave states. It begins with a simple understanding. The mind naturally responds to calm and focused awareness. Even a few minutes a day of meditative practices such as relaxation, breath awareness, or visualization can improve clarity, your emotions, creativity, the sleep quality, and decision making. Many people start noticing better focus and a deep sense of calm within days of starting to meditate. Regarding meditation for peak performance, the journey usually happens regarding meditation for peak performance. The journey usually happens in 3 stages. First is calming the brain, slowing down the thoughts, relaxing the body, and gently releasing the stress so the mind becomes clear instead of constantly busy. Second is focus training or cognitive optimization, where you gently increase your ability to focus. You learn to concentrate deeply and focus on something simple like the breath or a visual point or a word. And this is what strengthens cognitive and mental abilities. And then third comes peak performance meditation, where techniques like visualization, gratitude, and deeper meditative states are accessed to enter the flow state. It can be used for creativity, sharper memory, very fast decision making, and this is something I'm deeply passionate about. What we do is combine meditation and the ancient wisdom with modern neuroscience based brain training. We also help in emotional healing and performance psychology. All these techniques help people reach the brain states where focus feels natural, confidence becomes effortless, and peak performance becomes aligned rather than forced. And over time, meditation stops feeling like something you do and starts becoming a way you live. And that's when true peak performance and your limitless potential begins to unfold. You know, something really interesting happens when you do meditation together. Together is the key word. Online or offline, it doesn't really matter. When you meditate, that feeling of self, the feeling of being separate from the universe and everything around you, slowly begins to dissolve. You move from feeling separate to feeling deeply connected. You stop experiencing life as a struggle and start experiencing it as connection. And we are all interconnected. We see it every day emotionally as well. One calm person can relax an entire room. Similarly, one stressed or anxious person can shift the whole atmosphere into one of negativity. This is how kindness spreads, compassion spreads, and even hope spreads. Our ancient Indian wisdom captured this beautifully, saying, "We are not separate islands, we are more like waves in the same ocean." And this is where group meditation becomes really powerful. When people meditate together, even online, there's this shared intention for calm, for healing, and compassion. People feel more centered, less stressed, and there's a natural sense of peace. The beautiful thing today is that distance isn't really a matter of concern. Online group meditations bring people together from different cities, different countries, and even different cultures, all sharing that one intention for peace and healing. Because eventually, peace in the world usually begins with peace in the individual mind. And collective meditation is one of the ways people can make the world a more kind, more loving, and a more peaceful place. If one person in every family meditates, the benefits of that elevated vibration spreads to the entire family. And that is the vision we have.